Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the LCI St. Louis Community of Practice 2020 Owners Panel Webinar. Every year, we invite renowned leaders from the owners world to speak about challenges, opportunities, and the latest trends in the design and construction industry from an owner's perspective. Our theme for this year is Innovation and Disruption through Lean Integrated Project Delivery, or IPD, in CAPEX programs. This year, we're incredibly fortunate to have three distinguished guests from the automotive, consumer goods, and the semiconductor industry. Please join me in welcoming Mike Mayra, Construction Group Manager at General Motors, Matt Cukovecki, Senior Purchase Manager and Lean IPD Leader at Procter & Gamble, and Steve Thompson, Senior Director of Facility Design and Construction at GLOBALFOUNDRIES. Welcome, Mike, Matt, and Steve, and thank you for joining us today. We know you're extremely busy, so we appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today. We're excited to have you and can't wait to hear about how you're disrupting the design and construction industry through Lean IPD. Without further ado, let's turn our attention to our owners panel. And I'd like to start by asking each one of our panelists to take a few minutes to describe their company's IPD journey to date. They've all prepared a few slides to share, so we'll start with Mike and General Motors. Mike, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Jose. All right, here we go. Okay. Next slide, please, Jose. So at General Motors, 95% of our contracts for the last 20 years have used design build as our contracting method. And we've done a great job using that method. We seldom miss our dates for start of production, and our costs are usually within our allocated appropriation costs. However, to remain competitive in the automotive industry, we need to continually improve both the schedule and capital costs of our facilities. We've implemented many lean practices and tools over the last 4 to 5 years on major facility projects totaling about $3 to $4 billion with much success in both the US and Mexico. The practices and tools that we have been successful in using are one, creation of high-performing teams that focus on culture and trust building, project organizational design, developing project goals and conditions of satisfaction, risk identification, and management. Lean culture. It's imperative to create a lean culture within the project that emphasizes a lean mindset at every level in an environment where the day-to-day actions of each member are encouraged and nurtured by lean practices. Using the last planner system to enhance collaboration and tool planning to better predict and affect schedule success and to quickly uncover and mitigate issues. If this is done properly, you will have better visualization of the work plan, improved level of accountability, and increase delivery of value. Measurement and learning. These include using health surveys to pinpoint areas that leadership needs to focus on improving the team, project dashboards to gauge and measure success, problem solving and issue resolution tools, to conduct training workshops on lean fundamentals, and onboarding of new project participants in both the office and the field. Co-location. We have found it critical to have the owner, designers, constructor, and the trade partners at one location to develop and engineer the project. This can facilitate quick responses to issues. You can meet on an ad hoc basis with team members to solve problems. Innovation and technology. We've been using 3D modeling for over 15 years, and it has been a game changer for us. Other innovation and technology we have used are modular and prefab assembly, headroom and visual management, software such as BIM 360, Bluebeam, and Navisworks. Just recently, we have employed drone technology to track, map, survey, and inspect, and help manage our work sites. Next slide, please. The work that we have done to create a lean culture and implement lean tools has helped us to improve our project performance. However, there have been incremental changes and not huge steps with significant value. In order to see a step change, I believe that it was necessary to change our 20-year design build contract model. Back in early 2018, we decided to jump into IPD, Integrated Project Delivery, using an IPO, Integrated Form of Agreement. IPD, in its simplest terms, it's similar to design build, but with common goals and objectives for everyone on the team. Where it is different to DB, its compensation for work is based on reimbursement of payable costs, profit is subject to risk, and there's open book accounting. Lean construction tools and requirements are written into the contract, and it's really a fundamental shift in owner mentality. By bringing in the builder in very early adds tremendous value. And earlier planning with the entire team drives lower cost. And what I believe, a breakthrough to the next level of construction productivity. We had to meet with several different groups within GM to gain approval. Those groups were purchasing, legal, technical accounting, and risk management. It took several months of in-depth meetings, but we were successful in garnering support and approval. We then procured the services of a law firm, Taft Law out of Cincinnati, to help us draft the documents. It took us through the end of 2018 to complete the documents and get them ready to pilot a project. Our IFO documents consist of agreements using the consensus doc 300 with GM edits, modifying existing terms and conditions, and our local appendix. One intent of the new terms and conditions is to eliminate some of the historic risks that GM pays the general contractor to assume, but is rarely necessary or utilized. Our strategy in the team selection process is based on four criteria. Business enterprise, where we look at how is the team going to plan for execution, what's the quality of the team, volume of past projects, and what is our current workload. Then we look at what is the lean IPD experience that companies have, on their acceptance of the terms and conditions, what is our project organization structure, and what is very important, ability to continuously track costs. Prerequisites that considered equal are safety performance and financial capability. Last item considered is cost. We look at overhead and profit percentage expected and the labor cost structure. In this process, we first select the constructor, then GM and constructor will select the designer based on similar criteria, and finally, GM, the constructor, and the designer will select the trade partner. Next slide, please. In the fourth quarter of 2019, I requested leadership to let us use IPD on a new Ultium battery facility, and was given the go-ahead. Frankly, I was quite surprised, and I'm not ashamed to say nervous. This project was just under 3 million square feet with totally new processes that we were not familiar with. This project is also key to General Motors' future, as all the new electric vehicles that we will be producing soon will be powered by these batteries. So there's just a little bit of pressure. We issued an RFP for the construction package at the end of October, received proposals, and conducted interviews during the week of November 4th, and awarded the project to Martin Mallow on 11/14. You can see this was accomplished in the span of 2 weeks. Our traditional methods would have taken us 2 months at best. The next 4 weeks, we worked on awarding contracts for the designer and the trade partners. Next slide, please. We had our first kickoff meeting for the project at Gresham Smith, our selectee in Nashville, the week of January 6th. This was followed up by setting our big room and co-locating the participants at Martin Mallow's office in Southfield. We procured the services of a lean coach, Christian Patel, from the realignment group. Christian was key in helping us organize our team, training us, developing our conditions of satisfaction, setting up the cluster groups, working on team norms, instructing us in choosing by advantages, A3 thinking, pool planning, and a host of other activities. The team got off to a great start and began developing a lean culture and trust that is so important for success. We had an IPD structure that consisted of a senior management team from each one of the risk pool participants providing overall guidance. The core team, made up again of the major companies involved in the project, are responsible for running the project and making most of the decisions. This team consists of GM, LG Chem, the constructor, mechanical trade partner, and the electrical trade partner. The project quickly started coming together, then COVID-19 pandemic hit us. We all had to learn again how to collaborate using tools such as Skype, Microsoft Teams, and others to conduct our big room meetings. I thought this was going to severely impact how work would get done and the ability to work collaboratively. However, the training and development of our team, of our lean culture, had taken root. The team has been performing exceptionally well. I'm so proud of the team. This team did not let COVID-19 hamper our progress. If we had not had the 2 months of team development, prior to having to separate and work from home, we would not be anywhere near where we are today. In addition, IPD has enabled us to move much faster than if we had used traditional contracts. The team did struggle with budget at the start of the project, but has been able to reduce over $200 million from the program through target value design. We have a long road to go yet, but I'm confident that we made the correct decision to use IPD for this project, as we've had much success today. I hope you'll find a few takeaways from our experience. Thanks a lot for your time and attention.
Thanks, Mike. Matt, I'd like to turn it over to you, and so you can talk to us about your journey at Procter & Gamble and Lean IPD.
Sure, thanks. Appreciate it. Next slide. I was going to say, nobody wants to see this. Nobody cares about this either. That's just my background stuff. We can talk that anytime. Keep going. Okay, so why is P&G Lean IPD? I can tell a story about how we got started, but ultimately, like many owners, like many companies, we started dabbling a toe, seeing how will things go. We hear about these value equations that are being impacted and things like that. Ultimately, it wound up being what I'll call the perfect storm of business need, opportunity, some of the right people in the right place at the right time with an open mind enough to really say, if we thought about doing something different, we would be able to potentially achieve something different. And then we found the right partners to work with to really jump in and do what I'll say is a full life away or full project. And that's really when we started seeing, okay, what we were doing as while we were dabbling a toe, we couldn't really fully understand how this value is created and what about the environment, what about the people, what about the teams, how this stuff really works. And so you'll see as a big list there, those are all the reasons why we are, while we're continuing to not only do Lean IPD, but I'll say expand our reach of lean intensity across multiple kinds of projects, regardless of the contracting structure. So that last statement around it being fun, it's absolutely, once you have worked on one of these projects, you say, I don't want to work this way again, especially anyone that's ever done any kind of project execution works in the past. So you can hit enter one time, if you would, please. Many of you may have heard at some point in time then about Liz Price, who spoke at LCI Congress a few years ago. She shared what was called the $1 billion challenge, and fundamentally, there's a business driver for this. We know if we can add value to what we do as a business into our consumers, we also, in the process, want to reward and provide value for our partners that we work with as well. So it's all about, it's a better way. We're intentionally eliminating losses. So the frustration and the fun and the culture of the teams that we work with, they don't want to work, like I said, in any other way. So with that, go ahead and jump on to the next slide. So this one is always a fun one. If you were to go out to LCI's website, right, you'll find access to 50 plus different tools, some more focused on integration of teams, others more on tools to help you with eliminating losses during projects and execution. Way too much for a highly systematic company like Procter & Gamble, and many companies for that matter, to be able to digest and really be able to understand and assess how to apply which of these tools and when would they provide the most value. So we took a simplistic view and said, okay, if we look at this as the 7 essential practices, not that all of these get used all the time, and there's many more that we may choose to apply, but we always fundamentally want to take a look at what is our partner selection process? How would we leverage tools like collaborative design and scoping workshops? Leveraging, just as Mike shared, what does a big room look like and or co-location? Conditions of satisfaction, target value design. The last planner system has been just an amazing transition. And then the IPD agreement. So how can we make sure that we've got contractual arrangements that make sure everyone is aligned and marching towards the same goal, and is really incentivizing the behaviors that are going to add value to all parties, and as opposed to some of the more traditional type interactions that may be pitting you against each other. And so these are the 7 essential practices that we talk about and that we teach upon, as well as many things that come from it. Then one more slide down, just one additional note around lean intensity. So what our observation has been is this: when we use, so every project that we do starts with an assessment, and it's really around how will lean intensity, so how many lean tools would be applied that would add the most amount of value to whatever the project specific details are. That is then how we start to look through, and again, there's a wide variety. There's literally dozens of factors that would influence how to shape and create an execution strategy for a specific project. However, what we have learned is the higher the lean intensity, traditionally, or typically, not traditionally, that sounds odd in this environment, but higher lean intensity, the likely that we'll find more value in the process of doing that. You'll notice a demarcated line there in the middle that says the use of a validation process via a target, setting a target cost. So what we've learned is that in the IPD world, using a validation phase or validation process is provided a tremendous amount of value to our business relative to when you hire a team of experts and you listen to them and you really work together to create a harmonized scope, cost, and schedule with a detailed risk and opportunity list. How do we ensure that they're able to then deliver upon those needs and commitments? That use of that validation process is a transition point that we love to factor in. So again, the outcome of this slide, or the end point of this slide, the higher the lean intensity, typically the higher the value that we're able to deliver for us and the partners we work with. So turn it back over to you, Steve. You're up.
Thank you, Matt. And Steve, you can talk to us about GLOBALFOUNDRIES. Let's double check that Steve.
Mute check.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I do want to call attention to a couple of points in my background before I talk about GLOBALFOUNDRIES. I don't come into the construction business with a construction background. I actually started off in research and development in the semiconductor industry a little more than 41 years ago. And spent about 20 years in the manufacturing operation, and the appreciation I have for what it takes for companies in my industry to be successful and what really adds value. And time to money schedule is of primacy. And then secondarily, you've got the affordability and predictability of cost. But learn firsthand, and if you go to the next slide, Jose, I think I touched upon it on this next slide. We invested almost $5 billion as a company in 14 nanometer technology, and we had hundreds of millions of dollars of overrun. We were 6 months late, and the market opportunity that we were going after vanished. So we were sitting on really a huge asset with no business, and the company has recovered from that. But relative to the projects, given the capital intensity, given the time to money, the essence of actually hitting the schedule, we knew there had to be a better way. And we had some former colleagues introduced us to LCI and Lance Planner, and we started putting to work some of the lean tools on, I'll call it smaller projects that we were doing. And when we had an opportunity to, I'll call it upscale and have projects on the $100 million level again, encouraged us to try something that they had been unable to do, and that's IPD with the IFOA type of agreement. And to date, GlobalFoundries have utilized this on five projects, totaling about $600 million worth of capital investment. One was a central utility building. Another was a retrofit of the facility for advanced lithography equipment. We did a complete retrofit, teeing up for what we thought was going to be 7 nanometer on base build and our MEP, or process audio system scope, and then the tool install or the installation of manufacturing equipment. And the net of all of this is we delivered the $600 million worth of scope on time, and within about $1 million, a little over $1 million, $1.2 million of the target cost. And that represents just a huge turnaround from where we had been in the past. As we get into the Q&As, we'll talk a little bit about some of the changes that had to occur both within the construction team and the larger GlobalFoundries team, and some of our trade and A&E partners. But it's been a huge, overall, a huge success moving in this direction. And projects of all size we continue to implement and utilize. And I like the way Matt put it in terms of lean intensity, but a number of lean tools on every project that we undertake going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve, for that background. So we'll enter into the panel section of the webinar. To get a lot of good questions. And this first question is for Steve. Steve, you mentioned how you decided to try IPD through a set of colleagues that introduced the concept to you. But can you talk to us about what was that trigger? What was that shift that made you go IPD where you've never done it before? How did you get convinced to do it?
Well, as I had mentioned, we were really coming out of, I'll call it the ashes of a near disastrous investment in 14. We had the budget overruns and the schedule overruns, and had a lot of recovery to do. At the time, we decided as a company, this is back in early 2016, we had decided to chase 7 nanometer. Ultimately, the GlobalFoundries put that program on hold. And we decided to chase the 7 nanometer technology, and we knew that we had no choice but to figure out how to deliver the facility readiness on time. And we had a very specific, this is what we can afford in order to bring this about. And looking at having been introduced to lean and figuring out how to deliver the project, we thought we could handle the schedule, but really the landing things within the affordability window became key, and we saw that the promise, at least of the IPD approach and the integrated form of agreement, we could tie all of us together as the owner with our various construction partners. We could lasso all of us together to commonly try to figure out a way to deliver the capability we needed to deliver at the cost we needed to achieve. And absent having everybody basically dedicated to that type of objective, we felt that it was going to be impossible to deliver the result. So the IFOA type of agreement, where we were all working together and aligned on delivering the project, or I'll call it the suite of projects, at the target cost that we needed to deliver, was the only path that could possibly lead us to success. Given our history of large capital investment construction projects in the past, and so the team that was hired on about midstream of the 14 nanometer to try to salvage it, but couldn't. We concluded that the only way forward that could possibly deliver that type of success was going to be this IPD. And that really led us to move forward. And then obviously we had a significant amount of change to drive, both within our own behaviors and within our corporate procurement thinking. But ultimately we prevailed, and the results speak for themselves in terms of what we have.
That's great. Thank you, Steve. The next question, I'd like to turn to Matt. The question is, before your first IPD project, what new behaviors did you have to personally learn or embody for your team to change and follow you? So a little bit of question about leadership. What are the kind of behaviors that we personally must take on when performing IPD projects?
If I were to sum this up into one simple phrase, it'd be facilitate, don't dictate. I know many of us that have been around for a few years and done this kind of work for a little bit of time, and I don't care what kind of project execution role you've played. If you've been in a project execution role, right, you've probably seen examples of command and control, and that's very much the traditional way that our project executions would go at P&G. And so what we had to really embody is we had to hire smart people. We had to listen to their input and let them help us work together. Again, we got to come up with that, like I said before, that common, kind of harmonized scope, cost, and schedule. And then we have to have contractual arrangements that really make sure that we all are incentivized to instill or show the behaviors that are really going to add the most value to the project execution, and that it's all in that same vein. So yeah, facilitate, don't dictate. Letting go of the traditional command and control philosophies was probably the number one, and probably one of the hardest things to do.
Thank you, Matt. That's very well said. So for the next question, I'd like to turn to Mike, and let me just read some statistics here about the caliber of the guests that we have and the companies that they work for. So GM, General Motors, number 18 in the list of Fortune 500 companies for 2020, $137 billion in annual revenues and 164,000 employees. Procter & Gamble, number 50 in the list of Fortune 500 companies, $67 billion in revenue and 97,000 employees. And GlobalFoundries, one of the 3 largest chip foundries in the world, with 16,000 employees in 3 continents and 14 locations worldwide. So it must be a Herculean effort to change large organizations, often perceived as monolithic. So Mike, how did you get General Motors to support this new approach? Can you talk to us about that process?
Sure. I just basically had to pray a lot. So it started probably about in 2016, looking at construction productivity. Construction productivity has been flat for the last 50 years, but we're seeing gains in manufacturing way outstripping what we're doing in construction. So something's wrong. We've got to do something different. I said earlier that most of our projects, we did them with the schedule that we needed. We did them usually within the budget, but we've got to get better because the automotive industry is all about competition. We have to get our products out there faster, quicker, and with more quality. So I decided, looking at lean construction and IPD, and it took me quite a while, I think, to really get not so much internal in our organization of a sustainable workplace or facilities organization, but to get the purchasing people and other people, comfortable with it. I really started bringing our purchasing people to lean events at the Construction Leaders Roundtable and at Lean Construction Institute. And over a number of years, actually a couple of years, bringing them to these events, having them hear about other owners that are doing lean and the great progress and improvements that they've made in their capital execution, including both schedule and cost. The lights started to click on in their head, and they said, "Hey, I think this is okay." So the next thing was to go with our financial people, our technical accounting, risk management, and getting those people and our legal group involved and said, "Hey, we need to do this." So it started quite a while ago, and it took some time. But actually, right now, purchasing is actually pushing me more further into doing IPD. And the problem that we have now is really have enough trained individuals in our facilities group that can manage an IPD project, because it does take a little different type of an individual to do that.
That's awesome. Go, Mike. Woo.
Well, I'd like to tap into Matt too. Matt, you're in procurement, so your name came up in a way. Legal and procurement seems to be a big challenge typically when switching from traditional to IPD. Any insights from your perspective, your experience?
Yeah, thanks. That's why I wanted to jump in and say about that. I think that's one of the things that's why I'm cheering Mike. But we've had conversations around this topic in the past and done some other LCI owners events and things along those lines together. One of the things that was unique about our P&G journey, at least, was that from the early on in our journey, we had kind of what I'll call co-sponsorship. So even though many times we think about a progressive legal counsel or progressive purchasing agent in one way, shape, or form, that is really, I'd call it open-minded. We have to look at what are the elements of value, and we have to look at all of the reasons of how it can help versus why not to go do it. And so, for instance, it really the game changer for us is when we sat down counsel and our purchasing lead at the time. She was all in. She thought she understood the impact that this could have on our business as a whole, and said, I love it and I support it, but I want to co-sponsor it. So when we sat down with our legal, what it really wound up doing is we really understood what was in the contract. So for us, Mike, you talked about using consensus docs, right? We worked with Hanson Bridget. We sat down with that group and understood what Howard Ashcraft's IFOA looked like. And as we talked through the elements of risk, what we really come to understand after we really try to sit down and go through it, the elements of risk, it actually lowers our risk profile as an owner. It levels the risk profile across the entire team. And it really, and why that sounds like it's great for owners and terrible for all of the partners on the group, what their benefit is they get to actually be proactive and design out their risk through that validation phase that I was mentioning earlier. And so it really is somewhat of the best of all worlds, where the team more equally shares the risk instead of, well, the owner just has to pay, right? GMP is the biggest joke that we love to talk about, is the guaranteed minimum price, right? Because we just pay everything that's above that because, oh, nope, wasn't in, it's a change, whatever, right? That is not the intent. So by really understanding and collaboratively aligning on what you're going to build and how you're going to do it and all those things, and then sharing in the risk appropriately, the partners get to help design out. I don't want to say design out. I mean, that doesn't mean there's no risk from the partner's perspective, but they will, most of the partners that we've worked with have told us absolutely the risk profile is much lower in full IPD jobs than it is in other more traditional type execution models, because they have a much better chance to impact it up front. So that's really a little bit around how the legal and the purchasing pieces came together for us, and why really it's one big group that really focuses on this program as a whole today.
Thank you, Matt. And how about you, Steve? Was procurement and legal an obstacle to overcome, or was it relatively easy for you to get them on board?
Legal was actually pretty easy sell. It was the procurement leadership at the time that was a much more difficult organization to convince. I think there's like an illusion of cost certainty under like a lump sum or some other compensation arrangement. But it is key. If we say it's going to cost $100 million, that we land at $100 million, not 120, but at 100 million. That's what we're planning for. It's okay to come in a little bit under, but going over is highly problematic. And the challenge from the get-go was, you know, we're gonna basically pay our partners what they spent. Right, we're gonna fully compensate them and guarantee that if it costs them X to do the work, they're going to be compensated X plus with their profit somewhat at risk in the construct of things, and that really made our procurement leadership at the time very nervous, because it wasn't that we missed by a little bit in the past. We missed by a whole lot in the past, and it having in some sense an unbounded, you know, if we use up all of the profit and everything else, we're still going to pay whatever it costs. Having that as an unbounded really made our procurement leadership nervous. And ultimately, what we ended up doing is costing projects both ways, and demonstrating that if we went down to lump sum, and we did this with third-party estimating, what would have been added in traditionally by our contracting partners to mitigate their risk, that we would in all likelihood end up paying more under a different compensation strategy with IPD. And so with that with that analysis in hand, we were given okay, you can do it this once, and let's see what the results are. And if it's successful, okay, we'll grant further license. And you know, the net at the end of the day is we've worked past that barrier. Now, not all of our projects are IPD, but we don't meet the same kind of resistance, because I think there's an understanding again that you know, we're going to achieve a better result on particularly on what I'll call these medium-sized projects than we would otherwise. And having the analysis in hand helped to get over the energy barrier, and then having the successes has allowed us to continue as part of our normal business.
Thanks, Steve. So this is a little bit of a question for everyone here. Today we have over 40 owner representatives on this webinar. By the way, that's the largest number of owner participants today in any of the events that we've had. So thank you for that. And so we have owners dialing in from Mexico, Germany, and throughout the United States. So this question is for them. What's something that you would tell an owner who's considering Lean IPD for their next project? What's something you would tell them? And Matt, let's start with you.
Something that I heard Disney's Bill Seed and Craig Russell describe at an IPD kind of showcase that they were doing is after Congress in 2017, I believe. We're actually in Orlando. They asked a very simple question. It is, what kind of owner do you want to be? That was so simple yet so profound, right? I think when you look at, understand your reasons why you want to do something different than where you're at today, you're probably unhappy. And at a very simple, at its most simplistic form, when you ask what bugs you, those are things that are probably going to be loss of value or inefficiencies in some process, whatever it is. So understand why you want to get in this environment and what are you hoping to get out of it. And understand, keep your character and integrity intact, right? This is not a place, this is all about trust and transparency and really working together. So people, right, one of the most overused words in this environment is collaboration, because so many people have so many different expectations for what that really means to them. I would really say, right, understand who you are and what you want to get out of it. Keep your character integrity intact, and while you do it, don't be afraid to try, right? Don't be afraid to fail. Find some energetic change agents, both at the top and at the bottom. If you don't have grassroots people from the bottom up, honestly, you're probably not going to have the same level of success, because the people are the ones that have to do the work, right? Companies enable, but people have to do the work. So you have to be able to have both to be able to be successful. So remember, people are your key, and ask yourself, what kind of owner do I want to be?
Thank you, Matt. Mike?
Sure. I mean, I agree a lot of what Matt said. And some of the things I might add is that, to me, the most important thing is that you have to have a culture that's going to want to work collaboratively and develop those relationships and trust, which takes time to develop. This trust doesn't happen overnight. And, we come from, in the construction industry of it's an us versus them mentality. It's the owner versus the contractor. We're always sort of pitted against each other for many years. Well, in an IPD, it's totally different. You have to break down those barriers, and you have to learn how to work together, and you have to develop that culture. So to me, that's paramount. And if somebody can't do that, you can't be afraid to get them off the team and tell them, I'm sorry, we think you're a good project manager, a good engineer, but you're just not a fit for this type of a process that we're working on. So to me, before you get into IPD, you have to find the people that are going to want to be change agents and can work in an environment that will allow, really close working relationship with the other contractors and trade partners and architect engineers.
Absolutely. Well said, Mike. And Steve, what would you tell owners out there who are listening right now in terms of IPD?
I would say it requires a change, and both what Matt and Mike have indicated, I think, are true. What kind of owner do you want to be, and what do you want to get out of it, and are you willing and able to, so to speak, vote people off the island if they really are unable to change and adapt? I think the key in all of this is really there's got to be a lot of owner leadership, and change is hard. especially cultural type of change, and it requires sustained investment, sustained energy put into the system for 2+ years before it's kind of naturally, the change that you want to see is going to naturally arise from all areas of the system. And that's energy that you have to put into the system as an owner. And everybody on your team as an owner has to be able to do that. And whether it's a trade partner or what have you, all bad seeds have to be removed from the system, because they disrupt the ability to actually put the energy in. And it's hard to put in energy for 2+ years before things really take hold and actually come back. And so it's important to remove the barriers to that, but it's also important to focus on, I think, getting good competence in certain areas that can provide almost instantaneous return. And so, if you're contemplating this, choosing by advantages is just a fundamental building block, because it allows you to start building the team the way you want it to be. And the approach forces us to, as owners, to look at different attributes than perhaps we have done so in the past. And by bringing the right types of players onto the team, then that investment in a new way of doing business brings about almost an instantaneous return. Not, I'll call it a self-sustaining return, but it's not like 100% investment and 10% return. You get maybe 50% back for that investment, and so you're not using all the calories that you have to put into affecting the change in terms of getting it back. And I think CBA and last planner are two things to start. Really try to get good at the very outset. Invest in some training if you need to, or whatever, so because they can return almost instantaneously some additional benefit above and beyond the energy that you have to invest to.
Thanks, Steve. We're getting a lot of questions about selection of contractors, design engineering firms. How do you select your teams? And I know, there's a lot out there in terms of choosing by advantage, but maybe if you can all share from your perspective, maybe the one thing that you look for when you're choosing your teams that you're going to go do these IPD projects with. And we'll start with you, Steve, and then go to Matt and Mike.
I don't know if the approach that we use is unique to us, but we look at our business, and probably 50%, maybe a little bit more, is in process piping, and the vast majority of that is in high purity. And so we tend to start by selecting a process piping partner and involving them in the selection of all of the other players that they're going to be working with. Fundamentally, if we're trying to drive productivity in the field, if we can find a way to get people to work with and enable our process piping partner, then we're able to elevate the largest portion of our project. And so that's where we have been focusing on, I'll call it choice number one, and then subsequent to that, the other partners have brought in. And we've run some projects without a general contractor. There's value in having a GC, but it's not necessarily a prerequisite. And so I think it's paid off in that having, I'll call it the lion's share of the human resource is central in all of the selections that we do, and in whether or not we would bring in a general contractor that will provide overall coordination for the program.
Thanks, Steve. Matt?
Oh, this is obviously near and dear to my heart, right? This is what I do. Right, I look at my role to help build teams. So obviously I don't do it alone, but my role is to help facilitate the build of a team that's specifically designed to tackle a project or a problem. That process for us is, I'll say, pretty well defined. It does not look like we hire a role first, second, third, or fourth. Every time we do, again, an assessment to understand what network of commitments would make the most sense for a specific problem. Right? How would we create a network of commitments that would be best suited to overcome this challenge? And so, fundamentally, without going through all of the details of what's in, what's out, and how do we go through the mechanics of it, it fundamentally, after we lay out that strategy, we want to go through and we want to work with people based upon capability, interest, cost, and fit. Those are probably the best ways to describe how we go through and choose. Now, there's many factors that go into it, but we will prioritize the list of roles based upon the type of problem that we're trying to overcome. And then, again, like I said, capability, interest, cost, and fit to see who is the best. Now, something that's different for us that we had never been through before is that concept of progressive partner selection. And we are, I'll say, adamant about sticking to that. It's been game changing for us to get buy-in from the team. So as we pull on that most important partner for, again, specifically designed strategy to tackle a problem, they are with us then the next time we go after and try to pull on the next partner. And then again, as the team is coming with us every time, so whether we've got two on or we're bringing the third on, again, it's add to the team is working on bringing on the next partner, and we all have complete buy-in together. So that's what I would say, but that's a topic I could talk for a whole day.
For sure, it's a great topic too. So last but not least, Mike, we got about 3 minutes here for the turn of the hour, so we'll let you give us the last words.
Well, I did sort of mention in my presentation the kind of selection process that we use, but of course we really look at pre-qualifying, companies, making sure that they've had a track record in the industry of doing at least some type of lean project in IPD. Again, are they going to accept our terms and conditions? How are they going to be organized to manage a project? What is their philosophy on how they think they can bring value to the team? And then again, what it says, the last thing that we really look at is cost. So, and what we ask for in the proposal is that we look at what is the expected overhead rate that the constructor would be looking for, and what profit percentage are they expected to get. And then also we want to look at what their labor cost structure. So that's basically, we go through an evaluation and an interview process. Then when we ask for the proposal, we come back and we spend almost a day interviewing the team and trying to find out and kind of dig deep on how do they view that they would work in this type of environment with us, and who are those people. In fact, we'd like to see some of those people actually in the interview process, so we can see and kind of get a feel, can they be a right fit for what we want. So then once we pick the constructor, then we work with the constructor and put out a request for proposal for the architect engineer. So that constructor is involved with us as we're reviewing the proposals from the AE, and then we jointly, select it. It's not the owner. So one of the things in IPD that we need to look at is that the owner has to understand that he's going to lose control. You have to give up control. You're going to really be doing this project with a group of other companies, and that those other companies are making decisions for the best of the project as a whole. So the owner may say, hey, I don't think we're going to do this. And if the rest of the team says, no, we're going to, then that's going to happen. Unless, of course, it's something that's critical to the project and it's a change, and the owner's going to say, I want to do this. Well, then we'll end up having to pay for it, I'm sure. But so that's basically how we kind of pick our partners when we go through an IPD project.
That's great. We're coming up against our time, but I want to thank you, Steve, Matt, and Mike, for taking the time to visit with us. Incredible journey. You're paving the way, but you also living the way. And so I want to thank you personally for innovating and disrupting in this industry that we love. Thank you also to all of our audience for your attention. And this video will be posted on YouTube, so follow us on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to sign up for Congress. We still got 20 plus days to go. Feel free also to check out our LinkedIn page for next events. So with that said, thank you again, and you have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thanks, Jose.
Thanks, everyone.
Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.